like you usually do? Or... Ooh, listen to this.
Welcome to another edition of the Carmen Sense podcast.
A common sense approach to real estate.
I'm your host, Kurt Boomer Schenk from The Right Creative, with our real estate expert and star of the show from REMAX Realty Group, Carmen Lonardo.
Hello. Hey, Kurt. How's it going?
It's going well. Before we get to talking about what's going on in real estate and our guest, let's tell people where to find you.
Sure. The easiest way is to send me a text message to 585-233-4119, or, of course, email carmen.lonardo@remax.net.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
Before we get to Tom from Warren Engineering, what's going on in the market?
Well, again, we try not to date these podcasts, but we are in the middle of August, towards the end of August, and typically in August things slow down a little bit. People start taking advantage of the warmer weather, their family vacations, and so forth. And this year, we're kind of seeing the same thing going on. The market's kind of on a little bit of a slowdown, but it's still very active out there, still busy. Lots of buyers out there. There's some stuff coming on the market, continues through the summer. As is typical, I think what we'll see is a resurgence of activity post Labor Day for the fall market.
Okay, I was just going to ask about that.
Yeah, and I think this year too, because I think in our area we're blessed with a fairly low rate of the COVID virus.
Mm-hmm.
Folks are getting out there; they're enjoying time with their family and friends, and that's having an impact on the market a little bit too. So they're taking advantage of all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And actually getting kids ready for going back to school.
Yeah, going back to school is coming up. I think districts are starting a little bit later this year. I know that our district is starting on the 10th of September.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Jack, famous Jack here.
In fact, Jack is sitting in.
Yeah, Jack is here. And he's getting ready to do the hybrid model, 3 days at home and 2 days at school. Yeah, should be fun.
Yeah, fingers crossed that it works out. Anything else?
No, that's it. I would, encourage folks that are interested in buying a home to get out there and be patient. If you are working with a skilled agent and follow their guidance, you will end up with your dream home. Just be patient.
Right. With inventory the way it is,
correct.
As you said. Yeah. All right. We have our guest, Tom Wurzer from Warren Engineering. It's a well-respected inspection company in Rochester, New York since 1976. We were trying not to give away our ages earlier. Tom?
Yeah, well, we started the company when I was 7 years old, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's been inspecting houses ever since.
Yep.
Since he bought his first Kiss album.
Yeah.
So
1976, 4?
77, I think, was the Kiss
77.
album, but.
Yeah. There it is.
Yeah.
So why do we have Tom here with us?
Well, home inspections are a very important part of the real estate process.
Mm-hmm.
They're typically, a buyer will make their offer contingent on a satisfactory home inspection, and I'll let Tom explain what that involves, because it's not just simply a cursory look of the home and the property. It can involve other elements, more specific look at like the furnace or the air conditioning, if they want that, an inspection for pests, particularly wood-boring insects, and chimney and radon testing. And what has been a very hot topic for many years now is the presence of mold and mold remediation. And, Tom's company, Warren Engineering, does testing for that and so forth. So I'll let him talk about, all of that all of that fun stuff. But so we typically see that on the buy side. Occasionally, when somebody is preparing to sell their home, they will have a home inspection done for their own peace of mind, knowing that they are going to convey their property in good shape to the next buyer, and they will actually go through it and and make some of the suggested repairs and improvements and so forth. That's not something that we always recommend. Because now you may discover something that you don't want to fix, and now you need to disclose it. Right.
Okay.
So, it can be a double-edged sword.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, my first question is then to both of you: is an inspection required?
No, it's not.
No, you don't have to do an inspection. I mean, more of it's on the contract side of things and whether or not one's going to be done. And lately, fewer and fewer are being done, I think, with the market conditions and the competition that's out there. So we're seeing more various inspections, like you were talking about, more pre-purchase inspections where people are more pre-listing inspections where people are getting the inspection done before they put the house up for sale. And then we're seeing some where they've bought the house, and even though they did it without an inspection, they're getting an inspection afterwards just to know what to take care of, what's old, what's new, what they should do. And we're seeing some interesting situations fall out of that.
A lot of buyer's remorse in some cases, I'm sure.
Yeah, we've even heard recently, just a couple of days ago, about somebody suing somebody else because they told them the roof was, 6 years old, and I told them it was about 15 years old, and then a roofer came and said, yeah, he's right, it's about 15 years old. I don't think they're going to get anywhere suing them, but it makes everybody's life uncomfortable.
Yeah, because what happens is, there are a couple of areas on the purchase and sale contract where you check that you are making it subject to inspection or you are declining the inspection. And, most real estate brokerages have their own waiver so that the buyer is if you didn't catch the check mark on the thing, you're actually signing a document that's saying that you're waiving your right to inspect and you release, the parties from liability. But as we were answering the question, I thought of an instance in where an inspection is required, and it's not required, in the law anywhere that says that you have to do an inspection. However, in at least one case, I know a lender that is a mortgage banker, and they're basically lending, private money. It requires that the property be inspected. Yeah, but that's on the lending side.
Right, like an FHA, right?
No. This would be someone, an outfit that is lending investors money. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a private mortgage.
Gotcha. So, Tom, I see you have 8 inspectors, and the uniqueness of your inspectors is that they're also engineers.
Correct. Yep. That hopefully makes us different and a little more advantageous compared to a lot of the other firms. Many times we'll get called by someone, and it frustrates me because they'll say, well, I had a house inspected, but the guy came through and he saw this crack in the wall and he saw this slope over here, and he told me I need to get an engineer to look at it, so I need to have you guys come out. And then I'll be saying, okay, well, you just paid him X amount of money. Now you got to pay me this amount of money. You could have just paid me about the same what you paid him, and you would have had it all done. Why didn't you do that? Well, my agent told me to use this guy, or I saw this guy in the yellow pages and, called him. So, yeah, a lot of times we just say, next time, call the engineer the first time, and you'll get through this a lot faster and more efficiently.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good advice. I mean, there's lots of people running home inspection businesses out there, but they're not engineers, and so when it comes to something that is structural, they're really not qualified to give an opinion one way or another.
Right.
And we've also got a personal liability, just pretty much by state law. If you're an engineer, if I'm a home inspector, past handyman, I make a home inspection company, and I miss that your place is falling down, and you've got to do $50,000 of repairs, and I say, well, I'm just going to go bankrupt instead of helping you out with that. You can pretty much do that. a lot more easily than if you're an engineer. You're pretty much personally liable for things. So it really puts a higher level of due diligence on us to really make
Okay.
sure we're looking at things closely and giving you the correct advice.
So, what describe a typical home inspection?
Well, typically the realtor brings donuts and coffee first, and we make sure we have at least one chocolate covered with the white cream inside.
There it is.
that your
That's pretty
favorite?
much the key part of the
Cream
inspection.
cream or custard?
I like the sugary cream stuff,
sugary
not the
cream,
not the pudding
fluffy
like stuff.
stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. But once we get past that point, which very few realtors bring donuts nowadays, that's kind of been a change that I haven't enjoyed in the inspection industry. But beyond that, we basically go through the place top to bottom or bottom to top, and it's a visual look at everything, as well as trying out everything that stays with the house. So appliances, running them through a whole cycle of things just to hear if you're hearing crazy noises, if it's not working right. Same with the furnace and the air conditioner, running those to make sure they go through the cycles right. But it's, looking through the whole house visually for any clues. And a lot of it is the biggest culprit in a house is water damage. So looking through the basement for any rot or water damage, things that attract carpenter ants like water. We're kind of like your general doctor. You go to the doctor and have them give you a physical, and we're giving the house a physical. And a lot of times your general doctor knows a lot to be quite dangerous, but they still recommend you go see the orthopedic surgeon after they talk to you.
Sure.
And sometimes we do that as well. So, I mean, we'll see that there's bees, there's ants, there's flying squirrels, there's crazy spiders that are 3 inches in diameter, and we say, you might want to call the exterminator too
Right.
to look at that. And it's the same thing with the furnace, going to a specialist on that. But from our years of experience, we got a lot of experience in all those things to be dangerous. So, we're looking at the foundations and the sills and the joists and how it's constructed. And there's houses where we're crawling underneath them on our hands and knees on dirt floor crawl spaces to look at all that stuff. And you kind of get a history of the house by looking at all that stuff, what repairs have been made, what repairs haven't been made, and looking at the mechanical, electrical systems and the plumbing. The attic is another key thing. Very few people go and look at the attic crawl space until they get the inspection done. And, you're looking for pests and looking for mold and how much insulation do I have? Is it well ventilated? Am I blowing the shower moisture up there? Is there any treasure up there that we can find, to share?
Coffee and donuts.
Yeah. Usually the donuts are in the attic. I haven't gotten into that one yet.
No.
But it's looking through all those things and kind of getting a full picture too, because all these things interact. So you don't want to just look at the rot in the basement and say, there's rot in the basement. Okay, so what's that mean? Well, how did it happen? And you got to look outside to see that. You got to look above it to see it. You got to run things to see if something's actively leaking. We have moisture meters to check things. We have thermal imaging cameras to look at things. It's all that kind of stuff, and putting it all together as one whole thing, just like the doctor giving you the physical. I mean, they might see the mole there, and they look at other things and interview about what your habits were and figure out why that is, and should we do any other testing or
Now,
make a repair.
Is a buyer typically with you during the inspection?
I'd say about 80% of the time the buyer's there, and we'd prefer it that way. We'd rather have them see it firsthand.
Okay.
Because everything looks worse in writing.
Right.
When you say that there's a rotted piece of wood and they can see it and it's only 5 inches in diameter and they touch it and go, yeah, that's not that bad. That's a little different than when they get the report with the picture of the rotted wood and
Right.
oh my gosh, my house is rotting out. What am I going to do about this? So it's also good that they can be there, ask questions about what should they be doing about things, what should they do to maintain the house. And it's especially good when they're a first-time buyer to be there.
Right. Do you have flexible hours and, based on people's schedules to do these inspections?
Somewhat. I mean,
Okay.
everyone would wish we're more flexible than we are, I would say.
Right.
If we could start at 8 a.m. and start at 6 p.m., people would take those immediately,
Sure.
as well as Saturdays and Sundays. So we do some inspections at those times, but admittedly, we try to live somewhat of a normal life as well and do a lot of our inspections during the day, during the work day. But we do start as late as 3, 4, sometimes 5 p.m. at night. And on the weekends, we have Saturday and Sunday coverage where a bunch of our engineers will do inspections at that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
About how long? I don't want to. I guess
Right.
ballpark because every house is different. But what kind of time investment do you
I
usually?
always tell people the biggest variable is how much do you want to talk. I think that came up recently with Carmen. Even basically you can get through a house in 40 to 60 minutes, average size house, if you don't say a word. And basically, it's a data gathering exercise. I mean, you're probing things, you're looking at things, you're taking pictures, and you get all that, and you're taking your notes, and then you put all that together into a report. But a lot of that putting together we do after the fact. Some of the inspectors will do it at the inspection, but some of them might sit in their car for an hour with you waiting for them to come back on that, which is sometimes a waste of a lot of people's time. But it can take. We all schedule different spacings between our inspections for travel and things. I admit I've gotten to a point where I want to be more laid back, so I schedule them 3 hours apart. When I first started this, we scheduled them 2 hours apart, and I did 4 every day. Now we do 2 or 3 a day, maybe.
Okay.
And there's a lot more to it now. You're going to get a report with pictures and
Right.
and a lot more information. In the old days, it was 5-6 pages of text, and here you go. The house is pretty good, but there's 2 things wrong in the end.
Right.
Now you've got 30 pictures in there and
Right.
the details with little arrows pointing to everything.
I have to imagine that with all of the homes that you've inspected since you've been doing this, you must have come across some pretty weird stuff from time to time, right?
We do. Yeah, I try to erase a lot of that from my memory, but some of it's indelible. And
Give
and
us
can't be given.
give us an example of some weird stuff that you've seen.
I think I've been telling you guys, there's different things. I've had a couple graves in the basements of houses.
Graves.
Yes. Yep. There's usually there's rumors of what they are, but who knows what they really are. A lot of times it's usually just the first name of the person on there. And so they'll say it was the Underground Railroad in the 1800s. And it usually makes sense because the one house was in the town of Perrington in Fairport, and the house had been erected on top of a foundation of an older house. And there was a marble gravestone there. That part of the basement was not dug as deeply as any other part of the basement. And I don't remember the name of that one because it was before we were taking pictures, back around probably the year 2000 or so. And so that was one of them. And then I had a grave in the last couple of years that I sent you a picture of that was over more towards Seabreeze area in a very old structure. And that we think was more of a child's grave. It wasn't very big, but had the name on there. So that's interesting.
No, that's just creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll have farmhouses with gravestones out front and things. And
Well,
I've
that
had
makes
ones where there's pieces of gravestones I'll find.
Right.
I'd like to think it was just a guy that made gravestones that said, "Oh, here's some rejects. I got to use these for blocking and structural components."
Mm-hmm.
But you never know.
Okay, to parlay that. So, have you gone to a house where somebody said this house is haunted? Just FYI.
That one with the grave in Fairport, the guy buying it is going to have his office on the first floor. It's a 4-family.
Yeah.
And there was a tenant there that had been living there for about 14 years. And this guy buying it wanted to believe there's ghosts really bad.
Yeah.
So he went to the tenant and said, "So, you ever hear noises at night? Anything crazy?" And the tenant looked at him like he was from outer space. He was like, "No, are you nuts?" Yeah. And you could tell the guy's face just dropped like, "Oh, that's too bad."
Darn.
I was really hoping you'd say there's some ghosts around here.
Houses
But
haunted.
I have some pictures that look like spirits, and I'm not sure what they are.
Yeah, with you've got the thermal imaging. So.
Well, one of them was regular pictures that I took, and the weird part was it was an 1800s house in Brockport.
Yeah.
And I get to we do the first floor, old farmhouse, and the stairs to the second floor were gone. The people hadn't used the second floor for like 40, 50 years for some reason.
Wow.
So I had to get my ladder to get to the second floor. So I inspect the second floor on my own. Nobody follows me up there. Then there's a little hatch that you can barely fit your arms up through to look at the attic above that. And I couldn't even fit my shoulders through it. I'm not Mr. Big here. But so I just stuck my arm up there and just took like 3-4 pictures.
It's crazy.
So I don't even look at it. I come back to the computer at night, and there's just these wispy looking figures and stuff on there.
Wow.
And who knows if it's some strange spider formation thing. But
it's an orb.
But you never know. But it was a creepy enough house to say, yeah, maybe there's spirits. But overall, I don't believe too much in that stuff because I figure with the volume of houses we look at, out of 12 or 13,000 houses, I think I would have run into more of that.
Yeah,
but,
you think?
But maybe they only come out at night, and I'm not there at night.
Yeah.
That's what the show is.
You got to leave it open. You never know.
Wow.
But that's not our typical inspection that
no,
we're looking for.
no.
We're not, we
Sorry
don't,
we got
we
there,
should add
folks.
to our agreement form that we don't inspect for spirits or ghosts, but we
Right.
haven't really put that on there.
What about you sent some pictures of some pretty
There's some nasty bugs
creepy
there.
looking bugs.
Yeah, and I had one this week. I didn't add to that. It was in the 19th ward up on the sidewalk. I put my pen next to it for a picture. It was a slug that was about 6 inches long.
A slug, like
Yeah.
a snail.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. Do you know if you can cook those up or anything? Is there any Italian
Probably.
dishes that you
Probably.
can make with
A
those?
little garlic,
a little
some butter.
escargot, but
Yeah.
that's French.
Yeah, without the shell. I mean, you don't have to take it out of the shell that way, so it's a little easier.
Well, once you throw them in boiling water, they sort of come out
Yeah,
of the shell.
they scream.
On their
Okay.
own, yeah.
That's good to know.
We'll get to that later.
But yeah, I
during
had some
our
wolf
Carmen
spiders.
Sense.
Wolf spiders
I was
this
going to
year
say
for the
brown
first time.
recluse.
More of the wolf spiders.
What,
Like
the
I
wolf
think the wolf spiders don't create a web. I think they jump on you.
Yeah, they're jumpers.
Yeah, I had those in Irondequoit. So if you're near Durand, Eastman Park, you might want to watch out for that.
Jumping
Along with the
spiders.
turkeys and the deer that were in the yard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See
So,
that?
yeah.
Can the camera pick that up?
Yep.
It's tough to focus on those.
That one up in
It's-
There's a hairy one up there too.
yeah, the cross from the turtle. That one looks wicked.
Yeah, the turtle was pretty nice there too. It has a big like stinger off the back of it there. That turtle looks like its tail is pretty.
Yeah.
So
tight.
now, based on that, you guys, so all of you engineers must be somewhat of contortionist, and you've got to crawl into some really tough places and go into basements and things like that.
Yeah, you have to kind of get over your claustrophobia and just kind of breathe deeply and relax that you will get out of there. And if that you don't, you hope somebody calls.
Yeah.
But
I mean, if you got in, right, chances are
Yeah,
pretty good.
Yeah,
you're-
you can get
the
out,
toughest
but-
ones are the dirt floor crawl spaces, usually under your nice lake homes. I mean, the lake home will be $1 million, but there's a hatch you can barely get down through to go under there to look at how things are underneath there. The attics are more just sweating your tail off
Right.
when
same
you're up
time.
there and it's 120 degrees and making sure that you don't just faint before you get out, kind of a thing. As well as getting on roofs. But after a while, you enjoy it. And you always say to yourself, you got to rationalize it. Say that's better than me sitting at the desk looking at the computer, which I'll be doing later that night anyway.
Right.
Right.
But that's mostly it. I mean, the roof thing is always funny because, like, if I'm at my own house, I'm scared to death shaking to get on the roof. But when it's my job and I got to go there, it's just,
That's
let's
different
just hop
mindset.
off the ladder, run up there, look at the chimney, come back down, you know. But if it's at your own house, you're like, okay. And literally one of our inspectors injured himself by falling off his own roof.
Ah,
But he has
Nice.
never fallen
All
off.
the iron.
He's never fallen off another roof in basically 31 years.
Wow.
But he fell off his own roof.
Tell us a little bit about like what a mold inspection or analysis.
Basically, they call them a mold assessment.
Yeah.
And it's a visual assessment. You typically don't do testing. And the mold law is complicated, and lots of things are complicated. I mean, engineers are regulated by the Office of Professions, but home inspectors are regulated by the Division of Licensing, and mold inspectors are regulated by the Department of Labor. So we've got to be those three things pretty much, dealing with three different organizations. And basically, New York made a law several years ago, maybe 5 years or so, that said in order to tell somebody that you got mold, you have to be a licensed mold assessor. And in order to tell them how to treat it, you have to be one. So if
like
we
a-
see stains that are mold, then technically you're supposed to get a mold assessment done. And that assessment is a plan of how to remediate it. And that is given to a mold remediator. And then the assessor comes back after it's remediated to say, give it the blessing that
It was
you
done.
have now been remediated
Remediated.
properly. But if it's less than 10 square feet, you don't need to have it assessed. Then the remediator can just come in and clean it. So that's always something to keep in mind, that if it's just a small spot that the home inspector finds, you don't have to get that mold assessment done. You can just go to the cleaner and get it cleaned.
Right. Right. Awesome.
And I am allergic to mold, so that's my other
Well,
test,
that's
that if
the
it's really
test.
bad,
He's
you'll see
sneezing.
me coming out of the basement with my eyes watering.
Yeah.
Mold, cats, and one dust mite out of 4.
I've got to remember that. I also got to remember the coffee and donuts. Who knew?
Who knew?
There used to
Now
be
you
a
do.
couple realtors that were very notorious. I could count on them, but they're gone.
They're gone.
They're gone
Yeah.
by the wayside.
Yeah.
And would that affect the outcome of the inspection? at
It
all?
typically gets it done faster. There's no doubt there. The coffee and donuts will speed up things
Yeah.
quite a bit.
I'm bringing coffee and donuts.
Yeah,
this
that's
time.
what you got to
Yeah.
do anytime Tom's doing that. Now,
There's-
now, speaking of which, if you mentioned your report, and I've seen it because actually they did our house in East Rochester.
Yeah, they did. I think it was Tom, wasn't it?
It was Tom.
Don't talk about what we missed or anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that was the thing. You were very, very thorough. But we still, I mean, we got it inspected as the buyer, and you talked about inspecting for your own purposes. Do you look at that other inspection report, or do you just start from the beginning?
You mean if we've been there before?
If you've been there before, or if you look at another inspector's report?
Right. I admit, most of the time I'm kind of lazy and I don't look at the old report first.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll try to remember to look at it before I'm done or
Gotcha.
before I send the report out. And just to get a background. And we've been doing this for so long that a lot of houses we go to, we've been to before.
Right.
But a lot of those were before we took pictures and were quite as much detail. But it is good to look at that for kind of the history again for, well, they had a problem there, but that's been fixed.
Okay.
And you can tell that sometimes. Or, no, they've never addressed that. And especially when it comes to things like foundation cracks and foundation movement, it's great to have that past reference to look at to say, okay, we said there's a 1/4-inch crack there. There's still a 1/4-inch crack there. Or we said there's a 1/4-inch crack there. And guess what? It's a 1/2 inch now. So your
Right.
house is sinking into Lake Ontario and you might want to be worried. That type of thing. So, and you get to know a lot on a different subject. I mean, you get to know a lot just from the geographic area. Like I'd be scared to start doing home inspections in even Syracuse or another town, because it gets to the point where you see that address and you go, okay, I know that address. I better be really leery about termites. I better be really leery about expansive clay soil, leery about sandy soil and places falling in. So you get to know what each place is notorious for, wet basements, different things. Now, admittedly, that's kind of a bias, but you bring that with you to help you make sure you don't miss anything. And it really helps to have that experience.
Tom, what about radon?
Radon, I mean, it's weird. I wish I knew the history of how it got involved in home inspection and home buying and selling more. But, radon's a gas that comes from the ground from decay of an isotope of uranium to radium to radon gas. And so it's based on geology.
Yeah, I remember all those
got that.
elements.
No problem.
Yeah.
And basically where your house or property is located has the biggest factor of whether you'll have a high concentration of radon. There's always radon in the air everywhere around us, just like there's always mold everywhere in the air around us. And that's a small concentration. But once you put a box over the ground and try to capture it, which your house is the box, then it can get higher. Now, there's certain areas where it's higher, and the state publishes maps where it's on average higher. And it's kind of the bottom corners of our county are the highest concentrations, even though it can be anywhere. So East Rochester, for example, is about the lowest concentration, which is where my office is. So I feel clean breathing in my office. And for, I'd say, about 35 years, we never had a high radon test in East Rochester. Then we finally had one. So we can say there was one high radon.
What influences whether you have a high reading or not? I mean, is there something geological?
It's
going
geological.
on?
So what you're built over, as well as the porosity of the soil. So like in Mendon, there's a lot, and it's the geology, plus it's kind of a rocky soil that lets that radon up into the house more easily. It's also construction type. City of Rochester doesn't have that high of a concentration, but sometimes I wonder, is that just because all the houses are 100 years old and there's plenty of natural ventilation? I mean, if you open all your windows, you're going to be more like the outside air. So I think that's part of it too. You get these new tight houses, and you're much more likely to have high radon than you are in an old leaky farmhouse where there's ghosts in the attic.
Right.
There's the
right,
ghost again.
So when you put the test kit in, it's in the basement, right?
Yeah, typically the standard is the lowest usable level of the house. So if you could use it for a workshop or something, we'll put it in the basement. Now,
I've heard, and I don't know whether this is true or not, that if you don't have a basement, you don't need to do a radon test.
There's a lower likelihood of finding a high level, but I wouldn't say you don't have to. And in fact, I know a realtor who had us do one, and he's on a slab on grade house in Penfield, Brighton area, and it came back high. Okay. And then he went to get it reduced, and the guy putting the system in basically caught his house on fire, and his house burnt down.
Ah, well.
And
that's a different sort of problem.
So that might be a reason you don't want to test for radon.
Yeah. Interesting.
So I shouldn't laugh about that, but basically I was doing him a favor to do a radon test, and then that favor kind of kind of backfired.
And quickly, because I think we're starting.
We're
to
getting
push,
close to time here.
we're
Yeah.
pushing our time. How do you mitigate radon?
You put a ventilation system in.
So you
And
just
so,
ventilate.
yeah, if you got a modern house, it's a little easier with adding it to the drainage system. And if you got an older house, it could be multiple pipes, and it depends on the radon readings too. If it's extremely high level, you put a different type of system in. We've had houses come back as high as 250. Anything 4 or higher is considered high. And outdoors, it's about 0.4 when you're just walking around.
Wow. Okay. Great.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Well, before we wrap up with Tom, I will ask one more question, and then we can talk about how people can reach you. If people are considering an inspector, what makes you different from the others, and how should someone choose an inspector?
Like we said, one main thing is that we're all engineers, so we have a more logical way of thinking about things, I think. We're also some of the most experienced, so I think experience counts. I mean, you can look at reviews, but take those with a grain of salt always, because there's always going to be some interesting situations there.
Right.
But asking your agent for experience is always good, but ask around to other people, relatives, friends that live in the area, what their experience has been, and go off of that. So, I encourage people to ask around, but we'd like to think we're the best just because we've got the most experience and I've been doing this a long time.
Okay. And what's the best way to reach you? Multiple ways? Give me a
Multiple
number.
ways. I mean, our phone number is 585-385-4766. And it's www.warreninspect.com. And our email is engineers@warreninspect.com. So you can find us any of those ways. Just Google us, Warren Engineering, and you'll find we'll come up right away, other than some other engineering company in South or North Carolina that has nothing to do with us.
Thanks, Tom. And speaking of things to eat like donuts, I think it's time for
Carmen Cooks.
So, what's on today's plate for Carmen Cooks?
Oh, my goodness. My favorite time of the year is harvest time. When you pick fresh veggies out of your garden. And just last weekend, my son and I, son Jack here, picked a bunch of really ripe tomatoes. I've got two kinds of tomatoes this year, 3 actually, but one's an Amish paste, another one is an heirloom variety.
Okay.
I mean, these guys are like over a pound each. That's how big these tomatoes are.
God.
They're huge, right? And they're very meaty inside. They're not all watery and stuff. But so, what do you do with a bunch of tomatoes? You make sauce, right? So we talked a couple episodes ago about, regular Sunday sauce with meat sauce and so forth. But, I want to talk a little bit about my secret ingredient for marinara sauce. And that is peppers, sweet peppers. They just add a phenomenal flavor to the sauce. And if you get like the sweet banana type, not a bell pepper, but something that has a thinner skin, right? And it sort of just dissolves into the sauce, so you don't even know that it's there, but the flavor is there, and it's fantastic. So I highly recommend it.
Do you mince them?
Yeah,
Chopped
you
up?
just cut them up. What I do is I start with my onion and garlic and get that going in some olive oil, and then I'll throw in the peppers, and then I'll add the tomatoes. So
sounds good.
yeah, it's just
me hungry.
try it. It adds a flavor like you just wouldn't believe.
I will.
Yeah,
All
good
right.
stuff.
Great. Well, thanks everyone again for listening and watching another episode of the Carmen Sense podcast.
A common sense approach to real estate.
And Carmen, how can people reach you again?
585-233-4119. That's a mobile number, and does receive text messages, which is the easiest way to get a hold of me. Or email carmen.lonardo@remax.net. Visit our Facebook page and check out our other podcasts on YouTube and like us and do all of that fun stuff.
Yeah, rate us on your favorite platform, wherever you find us, and kindly be nice to us. Thanks to Fitz again here at RockVox for all of your podcast and video needs. You got to go to rockvox.com. He does an amazing job. He really does.
It's a fantastic studio, and you should see how clean this. I wish people could see how clean it is and sanitized. And
We're distanced from each other and everything. It's very safe. I highly recommend it. So give Fitz a call. And you can find me at writecreative.net for all your hosting, writing, and voiceover needs. And I'm Kurt Boomer Schenk with Carmen Lonardo and Tom Wurzer from Warren Engineering. Thanks for joining us today on the Carmen Sense podcast.
Awesome. See you next time.
See ya.
Thank you.